Something about the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq. Situation is changing so rapidly, allegiances are switching almost overnight, with the bad guys becoming good guys and vice versa. Frankly, it's quite impossible to keep up with the whole thing with these shifting sands. This vidcast will be out of date within a couple of days. Therefore, I would like to comment upon the hundreds of youngsters who are leaving this country to join I.S.I.S. and wage jihad for the murderous Islamic State, or Caliphate, headed by Abu Bakr al-baghdadi, or Baghdadi, a funny name if I've ever heard one. It's a worrying time for anarchists like me, urging the population of this country to go out in the streets to make a much-needed, long-overdue revolution, fight for real, meaningful freedom and liberation. I look upon this crusading fervour as another unhappy manifestation of this country's further lurch to the right. What these zealots are doing makes the EDL and BNP and their ilk look like school playground antics. With ISIS, the phrase "to the right of Genghis Khan" has never seemed more relevant. I may strongly disagree with George Galloway on just about everything he says, but I think his description of ISIS as a death cult is spot on. Mass murder, martyrdom, wading in blood, literally. Also, while I'm at it, as saying as some moderates and liberal types do, that ISIS is nothing to do with true Islam, is a bit like, as far as I'm concerned, saying that the Inquisition was nothing to do with Catholicism or Christianity. It's a spineless, useless cop-out. These so-called radicalised youth haven't been necessarily recruited so much by hate preachers and clowns like Ajam Chowdhury and his convert chum Trevor. The sad fact is these days it's the internet, radicals in jails, on the campus, small groups of deluded idiots, study groups that are feeding the I.S.I.S. recruitment. Mostly it's rhetoric about fighting for oppressed Muslims and setting up their sick dream of a medieval caliphate with its Sharia amputations and stoning to death of female adulterers that I find so disturbing, as they are delivered by these gap-year jihadists in their street language. Love. So, what is the reality of Iraq and Syria on the ground? Iraq in particular, since the utterly disastrous ground invasions of the Bush and Blair years. Hundreds of thousands of sectarian murders and massacres, car bombings, suicide bombings, carried out by sectarian Sunni zealots on Shia Muslims, and of course there's been the reciprocal violence from the other side. This is what our jihadist volunteers are buying into. They certainly won't be fighting American and British troops. It's all there in I.S. propaganda, filmed and used as bloodlust hate recruitment, beheadings, crucifixions, demolitions of mosques and shrines they disapprove of for fundamentalist sectarian reasons, plus some massacres blatantly filmed, bodies piled up in pits, people being herded to their execution. Remind us of the sort of stuff filmed by Nazi soldiers when they invaded East Europe in World War II. Then there's the forcible conversion of Christians and Yazidis, established communities for thousands of years in that area, long before Islam was dreamed up in the hallucinations of the Prophet Muhammad. Even if they don't flee if they don't flee or refuse to convert, they are simply exterminated. The women and children are then sold into modern slavery, Boko Haram style. They make little attempt to conceal these atrocities. In fact, most of the ISIS propaganda openly brags of this, as I say, filming everything from so-called decency morality patrols to the massacres and beheadings. But what's the unspoken reality for these homegrown jihadists? What are they signing up for? They all know that none of them have got any sort of military experience. They're all useless in that. Posing with AK-47s is not the same as combat experience with other people with AK-47s firing them back at you. Some of the young men, and it's deeply ironic considering how homophobic the brothers actually are, will be, and are, if some of the testimony leaking out is to be believed, are being used as bitches by some of the depraved commanders. Others are employed in executioners, and no doubt, as the military situation hots up, suicide bombers. These morons can't hardly speak Arabic apart from a few prayer words and greetings, and they haven't really got a clue of what's going on over there at all. But what are the teenage girls joining up from the UK, some as young as 15? What could motivate them apart from Islamic fervour? Perhaps, like so many of these things, the explanation is partly Freudian. In their own testimony, they intend to meet real Islamic men, marry them and breed more Muslims. Back home in their own restrictive conservative community, even being seen holding hands with a boy can be seen to bring shame upon the family. So in a weird, twisted sense, the only way they can have sex legitimately within their own frame of mind is to marry one of these blood-soaked jihadists. Strange, but true. And parents, relations, and community have no say in it because they are not there. The other women will, or girls as they are, will perform menial tasks such as medics, but another role of some of the sisters are performing as morality police, garbed in chadors, carrying AK-47s, beating and oppressing other women who don't meet up to the exacting standards or behaviour or dress code. So what will be the ultimate fate of these gap year jihadists? Many will die in the violence, and let's hope that they meet the sticky end that they deserve, killed in combat by female PKK fighters, hopefully, vaporised by drones and airstrikes. Those who are captured can expect little mercy, but some may be used as bargaining chips by their captors, who, with the shifting allegiances, will probably include former allies, brothers. Many will get what they have been dishing out, summary execution. I won't be losing any sleep over that either. They made their bed, they can go lay in it. So apart from the nihilistic rapes, massacres and narcissistic poses in propaganda films that gives them a fleeting pleasure, their fate will not be a happy one. Those who survive and make it on their way home back here can expect imprisonment, revulsion in their own communities, and I guess a lucky few will probably write their personal accounts, become minor celebrities, junketing on the liberal media circuit. The remainder will find it difficult to adjust, and some of them will be preparing to join the next jihadist bloodbath, waged mostly, of course, on their fellow Muslims. The anti-war Stop the War coalition will be wasting their time demonstrating against the bombing. We anarchists certainly don't support any warlike endeavours by the state, in particular our own one. However, most people I know, and particularly women who were out on the streets against the looming war in Iraq years ago, have little objection to bombing this filth into oblivion, even though we know that innocent civilians will be killed, triggering future conflict, such as the revulsion born of ISIS. Meanwhile, on the subject of Muslim fundamentalism here in the UK, another scandal, polygamous marriages. Although technically illegal here, according to the Channel 4 programme that was on last week about it, recently screened, there are over 20,000 of these marriages in the UK. The programme was non-judgmental, but it was quite disgusting to see women acquiescing to their own oppression and bragging, and the bragging, arrogant attitude of the men, some of whom seem to be financially supported by their wives. The worst of a bad bunch was a Jamaican convert, a leering character who insisted his wives be totally covered and nothing more than breeding machines. So all this has me worried, really. What with the Brits rushing off to join ISIS, the death cult, the unresolved cover-up by the establishment of mass sexual abuse and rape of non-Muslim girls by highly organised gangs of predatory men from Muslim backgrounds, tens of thousands of cases in this country, a drip-drip effect on everything perceived as negative about Islam in the UK, could eventually spiral into a serious situation on the streets, and it won't need the EDL to spark it off. Any incident, major or minor, could do it, anywhere, anytime. So I look upon such an eventuality with much foreboding indeed. as do many other people I know who live in the real world. So, what as anarchists can we do? And do what we should be doing anyway, in whatever situation we find ourselves, and that is pushing for mass revolutionary change on the streets against the race war, but also against all religion. It desperately needs a section of people from the Muslim background to reject religion, the false idea of a God and all the repulsive baggage that goes with it. The young, the future of humanity, have to fight against religion. All religion, but in particular the two great monotheistic religions, Christianity and Islam. It is the duty of anarchists, as far as I'm concerned, to fight against religion, religious wars, imperialist wars, but to fight the one and only war, the class war, and to fight for revolution. So that's what I've got